What is condition in racing pigeons? I happened to be standing among a group of fanciers at a show when one of those present popped this question. I wish you could have seen the expressions on the faces of the fanciers, and sampled the stony-like silence that greeted the query. What is meant by condition? The asker repeated, obviously delighted by the consternation he had caused. Come on, you experts, why don't you give me the proper answer? There was no doubt that the asker was deliberately goading the experienced fanciers among us. He seemed to be enjoying himself. Don't ask me, piped up one of those present. I'm an outright novice with only 5 minutes of experience behind me. Then eyes began to swivel in the direction of the 4 aces who up until that moment had tended to lead and dominate the conversation. As in all other spheres, those with little experience tend to look up to and defer to the acknowledged veteran. One of the 4 aces, goaded beyond measure, at last dared to give a reply. I define condition in racing pigeons, he said, with his chin jutting, as being in that state in which every animal must be in order to perform satisfactorily any arduous task which may be demanded of it. He paused to study each face and to learn from the expression of his audience whether they thought he had said the right thing, and had said it well. Couldn't put it any better than that myself, I said, although I thought that he had done well to come up with such a good definition. Questions shot at fanciers without warning, demanding answers off the cuff, can often be confusing and daunting, yet given a few moments in which to wrestle with the query, any problem can be solved. It then occurred to me that the biggest disadvantage any novice labors under is that of not knowing what condition looks like and when a racing pigeon has it on him. How does he tell? I've done a lot of thinking along these lines, asking myself over and over again, what is condition? I always end up by giving myself the same old answer. The symptom, like the effect, is always in the plumage. I wonder how many fanciers are going to disagree with me on this subject? If I want to recognize a bird that is in condition, I look at its plumage and note the extra high polish of the shine given off by the sheen on the bird's neck and throat. I see the bloom laying like a layer of finely ground French chalk over its back and on its feather. I see the outline, sketched in grease, of the upper primary where it overlaps the one beneath, and I want my fingers to confirm the evidence of my own eyes, so I put my fingers and thumb under the bird's wing and try and detect, by touch, that greasy condition of the feather that is indivisible from racing form or, if you prefer it, condition. A bright eye does not always tell the truth. One day I looked into one of those much praised bright eyes and thought I saw in the glitter of the iris that which was not gold at all but the horrid and heightened glaze of fever. But the condition of the plumage never lies. If the bird is abundantly fit, not just well but super fit, the plumage will tell the story clearly, plainly, so that those who know what they are looking for can seek and find it. It is a pity that novices don't make this search after condition their very first priority, because once seen and understood, no one can ever again fail to see condition. Birds of good condition keep their covers tight and flat so that the surface area of the wing, for instance, looks like a marbled flat and hard surface with never a feather out of place, or raised and bearing the outward appearance of a feather. Instead, one is presented with the fascinating view of a beautiful silk counterpane that radiates fitness along with its great beauty. If you take up one of your birds, and you hold it against the surface of your jacket, something should happen. What? The bird's plumage should deposit a mass of white bloom on the cloth of your coat. If you look down at the cloth and find that it has collected nothing from the contact, then you may be quite sure that the bird is sick and ailing. Fit pigeons make clouds and clouds of white bloom with which to adorn their plumage, and it should pass from them to you, on contact. The bloom should whiten your fingers when you have held a pigeon, and if the pigeon tends to shake itself after you have put it down, the air around it should be loaded with a cloud of bloom. Watch the bird if it steps into the bath. When it leaves the bath, the surface of the water should be covered by the spreading dust of the bloom. I once read an article in the Pigeon press, written by a well-known fancier, who went to some pains in pointing out that the condition of a show racer was different from that of the working racer pigeon. He referred to the high gloss of the show racer and the matte finish of the racer, thereby artfully suggesting that the condition put on by both types was different, that it was better in the show racer than in the actual, genuine article. My reaction to the above writer was that it is 1,000 pities such eminent fanciers should write so much nonsense. There can only be one kind of top condition in any species of pigeon, because condition is merely a term for bouncing good health. High gloss and matte finish. Sheer baloney. The greasy feel that one can find beneath the wing is also apparent to the fingertips when holding a bird that is mounted to the dizzy heights of condition. While I repudiate high gloss and matte finish, I must also agree that there must be degrees of fitness, or condition. In other words, some pigeons achieve a stratum of condition, which others never rival. These are the supremely fit pigeons, those whose metabolism is capable of exceeding the average. Hence my reference to the greasy plumage feeling which is given off by the superior pigeons, those who are of the highest degree. In another article, written by another fancier, but on a similar subject, I was informed that condition is the sole product of specialized feeding. I deny this, and I deny it with vigor. Condition in racing pigeons is not the product of a single factor but the end reward of many, after they have been made to operate in unison. No one can deny that the diet must be part of the package deal which we call condition. I would say it is essentially the second thing to be considered. Only the second? Yes. The second. The first thing is to be sure that the bird is housed in a hygienic and well-ventilated interior and that it has been provided with a wire mesh aviary into which it can go whenever it wishes to take the air, or have and feel the rain falling on its back. One of the reasons why it can be so difficult to settle, break, an old pigeon to a new loft is because the bird is denied access to rain on its back whenever it wishes. It is imperative that the conditions inside the loft are manifestly contributing to the bird's state of health before coming to the subject of the diet. I do not intend to use my remaining space on a discourse on dieting, so I will take it for granted that the novice can, by taking up one of my works, select the kind of diet which I have described, and he knows, is best calculated to bring the bird into condition. However, first find the conditions in the loft and make sure that the bird is getting plenty of room and an abundance of breathing space. I know of more than one great national flyer who, when conditioning his birds for a national race, removes every bird from the loft which is not a national candidate, purely to provide more breathing space for the birds he is trying to condition. If I were asked to name the important factors in conditioning racing pigeons, other than housing and feeding, I would name specifics and training. Why? You can look hard at a pigeon and then swear that it is 100% fighting fit, only to wake up next morning and on your first visit to the loft discover that the pigeon is ailing. You can say that with Homo sapiens there are only a handful of common ailments that attack either the young or older version of the human being. That is because modern medicine and hygienic environments have held at bay a number of ailments that were common enough a couple of hundred years ago. One cannot say me same thing for the racing pigeon. Even the greatest champion can contract one of these causes of illness and it can also die from it. Most of the bacteria that create complaints are brought into the loft by agencies other than the pigeons themselves, and in spite of all you might have done to preserve hygienic conditions that favor the birds, the odds are in favor of the bacteria, not of your attempts to fend it off. It is with the above in mind that I suggest to the novice he is unlikely to succeed in his task of putting condition on his pigeons if they go and contract an ailment, or a disease. An accident of this kind can ruin the work of weeks and months. But why let it happen? A number of ailments and diseases are brought into the loft on the backs, and in the saliva, of parasites. Novices should remember that it was the saliva of the flea that infested the back of the black rat which infected their victims with bubonic plague. Therefore, in 1348 AD it was the tiny but voracious flea that destroyed half the population of England. Diseases carried by the numerous parasites that attack racing pigeons can also decimate the inhabitants of a pigeon loft. Therefore, it is up to the novice to use the kind of specifics which kill all and every kind of external parasites. Remember, all of these parasites are not insects, so that specifics sold as insecticides will deter only a section of the range of parasites that attack your birds and live on their blood. The worst offender is undoubtedly the mite family. There are in the blood of racing pigeons, and often in their internal tracts, residual bacteria which are in what I term a state of hibernation. Take canker, for instance. The germs that causes this nasty pigeon disease are known as the trichomonas and residual, but hibernating examples can be found in most pigeons. However, in spite of the presence of this germ in its body, a pigeon can be brought into a high state of fitness always provided nothing happens to wake the hibernating germ from its unharmful sleep. However, only a slight change in temperature, upwards, or some other little factor can cause the residual bacteria to become active and begin to procreate and multiply their numbers. This can happen almost overnight. For this reason I treat my race candidates with an anti-canker specific on the day they are first mated, and I keep up the treatment by applying it once per month throughout the season. I do this on the assumption that it is much better to prevent a catastrophe than to try and overcome it when it has descended on the loft and caused havoc. Any fancier who allows his pigeons to root in the earth, even on a lawn, know that his birds are bound to pick up and contract roundworms. No one owns a special sort of pigeon that does not have roundworms because no such species exist. Pigeons with worms can't win races, so be warned. Perhaps the most pernicious, disgusting and horrible parasite that ever gets inside a racing pigeon and destroys it is the cock's-eye worm. This pest is known as coccidiosis and it kills more pigeons than anything, or anyone, including fanciers. Yet it can be knocked down and destroyed by the attention of just one specific tablet, in a matter of minutes. I could carry on in this style, but I have achieved my end if I have reminded the novice of what is expected of him by way of pigeon management, if he hopes to bring his racers into winning condition. The old theory that all you need is a shed, some birds, a drinker and a handful of mixed grains, in order to be a pigeon fancier, is just a pipe dream. As any reader of these notes must have realized, there is more to keeping and racing pigeons than wishful thinking. The road to success calls for a deal of hard work, very keen attention to the birds, and an intelligent approach to pigeon health. Nor am I proposing to enter into an argument about training racing pigeons. Of all the chores a fancier has to face and carry out, none is more onerous, time-consuming, or costly, than that of training the birds. Yet to give up regular training is voluntarily to yield up the prizes and pools and to lose your pigeons because they have not developed the muscle and the stamina called for by the job. If a boxer refuses to train, his manager is obligated to report him to the British Boxing Board of Control, and that boxer is then called to order. If a footballer doesn't attend his home stadium for daily training stints, he is soon sent packing. Athletes must train because there is no alternative. At this juncture of our treatise on condition, I feel obliged to point out another salient factor in athleticism. One does not start to be an athlete when one has become an adult, that is, if one covets any success. One starts when one is very young, especially if one has had the good fortune to have a professional for a parent. If one's object is to make muscle, then the manufacture of this elastic flesh must be carried out from the time when the body is still growing. Athleticism will assist the growth of the muscle, but it will make very little difference to it once the body has reached its growing peak and is starting down on the reverse slope. So, remember that athleticism must begin when the pigeons are young, only a few weeks old, in fact. Another thing to bear in mind is that a pigeon is made, or broke, in its first 3 months of life, and that its future is decided by the time it is 6 months old. Therefore, training is essential while the bird is still a squeaker, and if it is to do the bird any good at all, it must be continuous. Fanciers who can't afford to train can't afford to be fanciers, unless they just wish to sit and look at their birds and nothing else. And that's the rub. Successful pigeon breeding, choosing winners as breeders. Breeding winning pigeons requires a strategic approach that goes beyond simply selecting birds based on visible traits. In the world of racing pigeons, breeding from successful birds can significantly increase the likelihood of producing champions. In this article, we will delve into the importance of selecting winners as breeders, considering both visible and hidden factors that contribute to breeding excellence. The significance of racing performance. When it comes to selecting pigeons for breeding, their racing performance is a crucial factor to consider. Pigeons that have consistently performed well in races demonstrate a range of valuable qualities that can be passed down to future generations. By analyzing their track record, we gain valuable insights into their genetic potential and racing prowess. Unleashing the power of genetics. One remarkable advantage of breeding pigeons is their extensive genetic diversity. Pigeons carry a vast array of genes, far more than many other animals. This genetic richness allows breeders to explore a wide variety of combinations when breeding, resulting in offspring with unique characteristics. Unlike breeders of racehorses or dogs, pigeon fanciers have the opportunity to harness this genetic diversity through the practice of inbreeding. Exploring additional selection tools. While the race basket remains the primary tool for selection, pigeon fanciers have developed alternative methods to evaluate breeding potential. Concepts such as eye sign, wing theory, and throat characteristics have been proposed as supplementary selection tools. However, it is important to recognize that these tools have their limitations and may only be applicable within specific lines of pigeons. Pigeons with impeccable physical attributes, according to these guides, may not necessarily excel in racing. Similarly, there may be pigeons lacking certain desired features that still manage to secure victories. Ultimately, the race basket remains the most reliable means of identifying high-performing pigeons that possess the qualities necessary for success. Embracing the principle of heredity. Successful pigeon breeding is built upon the principle of heredity, which states that traits are passed down from one generation to the next. Starting with mediocre pigeons and randomly selecting birds from different fanciers will not yield the desired results. To establish a lineage of pigeons with exceptional qualities, it is crucial to select breeders from a family that has consistently produced winners over an extended period, ideally a minimum of 10 years in highly competitive races. Breeding from winners or their offspring is the foundation for achieving breeding excellence. Pairing excellence for increased odds. While pairing the best pigeons does not guarantee immediate success, get my main racing system, just email me direct. I'm an experienced ex-pigeon racer from England, and I can offer valuable insights and guidance on all aspects of pigeon racing, from breeding to racing. During my racing days, I managed a small team of no more than 70 pigeons, including stock, young birds, and old birds. It was not uncommon for me to send as few as 6 birds to a race and still secure the top 3 positions out of up to 2,500 pigeons in my club and federation. My race distances typically ranged up to 300 miles, and I consistently achieved top 5 placements in my club. My expertise extends to the art of selecting excellent breeders, including evaluating pigeons based on their eye sign characteristics. I firmly believe that true champions can only be bred from top quality stock, and I can guide you in identifying and acquiring such pigeons. I understand that many pigeons for sale are advertised based on their lineage or pedigree, but I emphasize the importance of assessing the bird itself rather than relying solely on paperwork. As part of my offer, I invite you to share photos of your pigeons, including their eye sign and wing characteristics. I'll provide you with free advice on racing and breeding based on my extensive experience and knowledge. Additionally, I will share auction links to high-quality breeding birds that have the potential to produce winners in your loft. Here's what you can expect to receive from me. A comprehensive Word document containing valuable insights and strategies for successful pigeon racing, including specific racing methods for both old and young birds, as well as general advice. Private YouTube videos sent to your email, covering various aspects of pigeon racing, from breeding to race preparation. Detailed recommendations on supplements and additives to add to your pigeon's drinking water, with scientific evidence supporting their effectiveness. Similar products are used by professional athletes and racehorses to enhance performance. Assurance that your pigeons will race home faster, provided that you have quality birds to begin with.